Hey guys, today's video is all about The Fool on the Hill by the Beatles, written mainly by Paul McCartney. It tells the enchanting story of a lonely man in a soft and gentle way only the Beatles could do. Listen to this. Sound familiar? That is the first chord in this song, and it's called a D6. That charming little chord is what happens when you play the sixth note in the key of D major, along with the root, the third, the fifth, giving you that illustrious, beautiful chord. And it so happens to be the way Paul McCartney began to write this song. Day after day, alone on a hill, the man with the foolish grin is keeping perfectly still. Now I can't play too much of it because of copyright, but you get the idea. But sometimes one chord in the hands of the Beatle is enough to create a beautiful song, Paul says. I was sitting at the piano at my father's house in Liverpool, hitting a D6 chord, and I made up Fool on the Hill. It's remarkable how casual Paul can be about writing such an incredible song. Now, the chord structure and melody aren't necessarily simple, but they aren't his most complex, and that's what lends to the charm of the song. Take, for example, when we leave the serene aspect of the song after establishing that there's something very special with the man, right? So it's whimsical. Day after day, then to a minor chord. Alone on a hill, back to happy. The man with the foolish grin is keeping, and then sad again. Perfectly still. And Paul takes us further into the composition by taking us down and shifting into a minor instead of a major. So instead of D6, he makes it D minor. Now that could sound like despair, but I believe it's bringing us down so it can raise us back up. And he never gives an answer, but the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. This song was written for the Magical Mystery Tour in 1967, and it's what I believe to be one of Paul's most underrated songs. People love it, but when you consider the care he took to write it, however relaxed the chord progression is, it's kind of a perfect song. But who is it about? Who is the fool? Well, there's a rumor that went around that was inspired by what Alistair Taylor recalls in his book Yesterday. Alistair was Brian Epstein's personal assistant, so he spent a lot of time with Paul. The story goes, Alistair and Paul went for an early morning walk with Paul's dog in London, and suddenly a mysterious man appeared out of nowhere. They said hello, and the man seemingly vanished the next moment. Paul and Alistair were chatting about the existence of God, so that interaction gave them the heebie-jeebies. Alistair says, Paul and I both felt the same weird sensation that something special happened. We sat down rather shakily, and Paul said, "What the hell do you make of that? That's weird. He was here, wasn't he?" But that can't be it, because that event happened actually a year after they recorded A Fool on the Hill. So we can chalk it up to a rumor. However, I'm pretty sure that it was just a time-traveling Beatles fan. Probably me. But Paul does actually give insight onto who inspired the song. Paul says, Fool on the Hill was mine, and I think I was writing about someone like Maharishi. His detractors called him a fool. Because of his giggle, he wasn't taken too seriously. It was this idea of a fool on the hill, a guru in a cave, I was attracted to. I remember once hearing about a hermit who missed the Second World War because he had been in a cave in Italy, and that always appealed to me. There were some good words in it, perfectly still. I like that, and the idea that everyone thinks he's stupid appealed to me, because they still do. Saviors or gurus are generally spat upon, so I thought for my generation, I'd suggest that they weren't as stupid as they looked. Kind of funny Paul took this positive approach to the Maharishi, where John Lennon decided to make Sexy Sadie, again about the Maharishi, a much more critical song. But if we just consider the idea of a meek, spiritual person talking about peace and love, or spending time meditating on a hilltop, especially at that time, was seen as quirky and a bit strange, but evidently meditation and mindfulness proved to have positive effects for millions of people till this day. So, not so foolish. A few days after composing the basic structure of the song, hitting the D6 on the piano as Paul says, He brings it round to John Lennon to see what he thought. Beatles biographer Hunter Davies was actually present on that day and gave us insight onto how it went down. Hunter says, Paul then went back on his guitar and started to sing and play a very slow, beautiful song about a foolish man sitting on the hill. John listened to it quietly, staring blankly out the window, almost as if he weren't listening. Paul sang it many times, la-laing words he hadn't thought of yet. When at last he finished, John said he'd better write the words down or he'd forget them. Paul said it was okay, he wouldn't forget them. It was the first time Paul had played it for John. There was no discussion. Then they lit a marijuana cigarette, sharing it between them. Now, John and Paul at this time were on the precipice of splitting up in terms of songwriting. And in the future, John would go on to poke fun of Paul for writing granny music. However, John loved this song. He actually spoke about it in his 1980 Playboy interview. John says, Paul again, proving that he can write lyrics if he's a good boy. After kicking the song around for over 5 months, Paul was itching to record it. So during the second night of working on I Am the Walrus on September 6, 1967, Paul asked Jeff Emmerich to stay late so he could record himself doing a simple piano vocal demo of The Fool on the Hill. Jeff says, when he finished, he asked me what I thought, and I gave him a thumbs up through the control room window. That sounds like the start of a really good song, I said. What is it called? It's my newest one for the film. It's called The Fool on the Hill. Paul must have really believed in the song because months prior, while developing the idea for the Magical Mystery Tour film, Paul jots down a note seeing where The Fool on the Hill could fit into the movie. And as we see here, they actually did turn it into a music video, not without Paul frolicking around in France. Paul says, I just ad-libbed the whole thing. I went, right, get over there, let me dance, let me jump from this rock to this rock, get a lot of the sun rising, get a perfect shot, and let me stand in front of it. I just had a little Philips cassette to mime to and roughly get the feeling of the song. There was no clapper because there was no sound. It was very spontaneous, as was the whole Magical Mystery Tour. Later, when we came to try and edit it all, it was very difficult because I hadn't sung it to sync. It's one of my personal favorite Beatles songs, and it speaks volumes to Paul McCartney's capabilities of writing solo music. And as John said, he can write lyrics if he's a good boy. And to think, it all started with this one beautiful D6. See you next time. If you enjoy these videos and want to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. My videos will always be free, and this is a great way to help me make them better for you. Check out my debut album, The Hollyhobs, on Spotify and Apple Music, and click the like button, subscribe, and notification bell because that is the best way to get notified when a new video is released. See you next time.